Being very entitled and controlling, narcissists have no difficulty stepping all over your personal boundaries. So that's why I put together an extensive video class called This Is Me. It has 25 videos, written documents, guided questions. I'm going to teach you how to have healthy boundaries. There's a link below, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. I've spoken with you previously about how you can spot someone who has that strong tyrant pattern of living. Narcissists can have such a need to be in control that they can come across in ways that are just so overbearing. Let's keep in mind, let's remember that when we talk about someone who's a tyrant, there are various descriptors we could give. These individuals are highly overwhelming. They don't just have control, they operate with caustic control. They're highly punitive in the way that they engage with other individuals. They're moody and brooding, and they're prone toward explosiveness. And then when they're not exploding, they're prone towards holding grudges and strong contempt and passive aggressive silence. They can be unreasonably rigid. They sometimes make you wonder, are they bipolar because they're so moody up and down? They motivate by intimidation. Tyrants are bullies. Now, there are some other ways that we could describe these individuals that I don't think you're going to hear from them. First of all, when we talk about narcissists who are tyrants, we're talking about malignant narcissists. These are people that are down on the far end of narcissism where there's just a meanness and there's an entrenched element there. But ultimately, tyrants are cowards. Did you hear me on that? Tyrants are cowards. They have a paranoid way of looking at life. They fear other people taking away their power base, and so they operate with a sense of vengeance. But ultimately, these people are phony through and through. And by that, I mean they just cannot come to terms with their own internal pain and flaws and imperfections. And as a result, they push all of their pain onto you. These are profoundly disturbed narcissists who are obsessed with protecting their own power base and being superior, and then that means they have to have somebody subordinate, and that's where you come in. Now, when we talk about people who are tyrants, there are so many different possibilities here. We could be talking about teachers or administrators. We could talk about politicians or people inside the clergy. We can be talking about business managers or marital partners or attorneys or law enforcement people or coaches. Anyone who's trying to find a position of authority over someone else can be prone towards this tyrant's mentality, and that's, of course, how tyrants operate when they're in those positions. Now, I'm going to tell you a little secret that they don't want you to know about, the secret about the tyrants, and that is being dominant is the single most important thing that a tyrant seeks. And they must do so, even if it means that they do it at the expense of knowing love or kindness. What we talk about here on the Team Healthy, dignity, respect, and civility, or openness or collaboration. No, being dominant is the single most important thing, and don't let them tell you anything different. And that being the case, whether it's conscious or subconscious, there are actually certain strategies that they fall back on, and I'm going to help you find out what they are, if I can maybe expose them to you, so that you can be onto their schemes and their patterns. And as you see this, I'm hoping you can realize that's their problem, but I'm not required to play along in the way that they want me to. Let me see if I can dive into this. There are 10 different strategies that I want to expose here. Now, the first thing we're going to say is, since back and forth didactic discussions between that person and someone else might lead to the possibility of vulnerability, which might then compromise their need to be important, strategy number one is shut down two-way communication. And by that, I mean they just simply tell. They don't discuss. They just say, here's the way it is. And they do that pretty much wherever they happen to be. Strategy number two, because they're so desperate, to be in the ultimate superior position, then what that means is they're going to remind you of how inadequate you are. In other words, I want you to know that when you're in my presence, I think you're dumb, I think you're stupid, you don't matter, and you will hear many insults. It's a deliberate choice that they make to do that. They could be something else, but it's like, no, I'm going to go ahead and remind you of how awful and how much of a bother you are. That's something that they select, and that's what they do. A third strategy they use. When you're engaging with people in a means where they can say, we want to know you better, the healthy individuals will say, well, I'd like to know your backstory, and I'd like to know some of the contributing circumstances that have made you to be the person that you are. The narcissists use the strategy, though, that says, you know what? I don't care about your backstory. I don't care about your complexities, your uniqueness. And so their strategy is just reinforce a one-size-fits-all approach towards people. In other words, think like me. They're the size, and they're going to superimpose their size onto you. Let's say if you wear a size 10 shoe, and they wear a size 12, it's like, well, you're going to wear a size 12. Or if you're the kind of person that likes one form of music, but they like another, it's like, you're going to like my music. And they think like that, and they just force themselves onto you. No need, no concern whatsoever about what your uniqueness might be or distinctions. Now, another thought, and that is, if they've had a bad experience with other individuals, and it's inevitable given the way they treat people, then the strategy they have there is when there's a negative experience, always, not most of the time, always find someone to blame. And in fact, to just pour on the criticism. And so as a result, they can use a lot of shouting. They can use silent treatment. They may ask you loaded questions like, why would you do something like this? Whatever works, that's what they're going to do. A fifth strategy that they'll utilize is when others are contrary to them. They'll think to themselves, I will make you regret the day that you ever met me. And so they will pour on all sorts of threats and punishment, and they will force you into submission. It's like people who are around me know you don't come against me, and that's a strategy. They want to intimidate you into you losing whatever voice that you might possibly have, and they're very good at what they do. A sixth strategy that they utilize. And then basically we're going to say to them, truth is what they say it is. They insist that others must adhere to and go along with the interpretations that they insist must be. And basically, you exist to prop up their narrative towards life. And so to them, I decide what truth is. End of discussion. It is what I say. A seventh strategy that they'll use is they've decided to themselves lies and secrets and dishonesty are always an option. With the narcissists who's strongly tyrannical in the way that they engage, you don't get the truth. You just get their version of what they need, and you'll find out that they leave out a lot of details. They're pathological liars typically, and they will not talk about some of the things that you need to discuss with them that would bring context. We don't do that. An eighth, and this is one that drives many people crazy. An eighth strategy they'll use is, when possible, appeal to a righteous cause. For example, they may say something like, hey, look, you may not like the fact that I'm coming on strong, but I'm doing this for your own good. Or sometimes people will say, well, as I'm speaking to you, I'm doing God's will. And so you have to go along with that. You can't argue with God, can you? Or I'm doing this so that I can teach you how the world works. Or I'm doing this so that we can have a successful organization. They'll appeal to a righteous cause. And then when they have that righteous cause, and if you come back and say, well, I'm not pleased with this, it's like, well, I can see that you're not somebody who's wanting to play with the bigger picture in mind, and they make themselves to be magnanimous. Go figure. A ninth strategy that they'll use is minimize other people's freedoms. And by that, I mean their privilege to choose. It's like, you don't need to choose. You just need to filter who you are through me, and life is going to be okay. And so when you say, well, I'd like to look at this option or that option, It's like, no, we don't do that. And so the strategy is, I will make the decisions here, end of discussion. And then finally, a 10th strategy is they will whittle away at any person who thinks that they know how life is supposed to be. They take no counsel from anyone else. And so if you come along and say, well, I have an idea, then they're just going to find holes in your logic. They're going to find holes in your reasoning. And in their minds, they think, well, you're stupid anyway, so why do I need to listen to you? Whittle away, whittle away, whittle away. How many times have you been on the receiving end of their dismissive comments? Now, I've just listed 10, and I could go on and on, but I think you kind of get the idea of what we're talking about. Bottom line is, if somebody is in your life and they live in this tyrannical kind of way, that's no way to do life. And I don't care, what they may say their end game is and how good it may make life for everybody else. Don't buy into that kind of mindset at all. They have no clue about how to make life succeed. All they care about is their own power base, period, end of discussion. And if they have to shove their own grandmother aside to get what they want, they're willing to do that. And you would be included in that as well. Now, there's you may have heard me in the past talk about what I refer to as the significance principle. All of us want to feel significant in some way. The significance principle it says basically that, but basically it says the best way to find significance is to help others find their significance. And that's a strategy that's completely lost on the tyrannical narcissist. Actually, when you help somebody and you lift somebody up, then that's when you feel better about who you are. Now, basically, I'm going to think to myself, contrary to that tyrant, I find no pleasure in stripping other individuals of their significance so that I can build my own significance. And that being the case, I'm hoping you can join me in saying, I'm going to build my sense of well-being on integrity and goodness and decency, something that the tyrant just has no conception of. Now, I hope this gives you further clarity about what you might be dealing with. And I know that if you're in this kind of situation, my heart goes out to you because you're struggling and you're hurting. Make your own internal character your ultimate goal. If you've not already, hit that subscribe button. I would encourage you to do so. Likewise, if you have a need for therapy, and many times when you're in a situation like this, that would be warranted. I've been sponsored for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. I've received much good feedback from people who have said, finally, I found somebody that can help me sift this out. Please, if there's a need is there, we have the online service with BetterHelp, and the link is below, and it'll take you to their website. Plenty of therapists that you could choose from. In addition, I also have my online courses. It's like signing up for an online class. They're very extensive with at least 25 lessons, videos, with each video has guided instructions and questions. We have Ready, Set, Connect about making healthy connections. We also have This Is Me about establishing your boundaries, Free to Be, Find Yourself Despite Those Controllers. We have my webinars that have already been presented on my website. They're there. And then in addition, we have many articles, my podcast, my books, lots of resources. That's why I'm here. Tyrants honestly feel like they're justified in treating you like dirt. But you're not dirt, and you don't want anybody to wipe their feet on you. I'm hoping you can decide, if that's their gig, that's where they are. I'm not going to be in their sphere of influence. I care about myself too much. My self-respect won't allow me to be treated in such a way as that. I hope that you hold on to that thought. In the meantime, I'm hoping that as you remove yourself from that kind of influence, it positions you to be that person of integrity and dignity, respect and civility, which is, in my estimation, the path that you can find, that you can take so that you can find your own sense of peace.